Good morning and welcome. My name is Meredith and I'm with Second Story, and we're really happy to have you here for such an important discussion. And I'd like to start with some statistics from the Voices of Youth count from Chapin Hall at the University of Chicago. We know that across the country, 1 in 10 young adults ages 18 to 25 and at least 1 in 30 adolescents ages 13 to 17 experience some form of homelessness over the course of a year. About 3/4 of these young people explicitly report that they're experiencing homelessness, and about 1/4 involved are couch surfing only, and that means going from one house to another, staying with friends or families. I think it's safe to say that we can assume the real numbers are higher. So that's the national picture. But what does the situation look like locally? That's why we're here today. We're so lucky to have 2 local experts on the subject of youth homelessness. Combined, they bring more than 50 years of experience working with youth in crisis, so we are really lucky. We have Kathi Sheffel. She's the Homeless and Foster Care Liaison for Fairfax County Public Schools. And we have Second Story CEO Judith Dittman. So Judith and Kathi, I'm wondering if you could introduce yourselves and share a little bit about the roles that you serve. Judith, we can start with you so you can also help us introduce Second Story to our attendees.
Great, thank you, Meredith, and a big thank you to everyone who's taking time out of their day to listen to what I obviously feel is a very important topic. I've been with Second Story for 27 years, and I think Kathy's been with the schools just about as long. So we've been, working in this arena for quite a while. Second Story is an organization obviously near and dear to my heart. We have a mission that is to provide safe havens for young people. And that may look like different things. It may be our short-term Second Story for Teens in Crisis, which is for 13 to 17-year-olds, or one of our longer-term programs for youth experiencing homelessness who are between the ages of 18 and 24. We also do a lot of work in the community, working with in disadvantaged areas, working with young people, trying to keep them in school and keep them moving forward and progressing and getting their high school diploma and not needing to come into any of our programs. So we also have that whole base of community work in Culmore, Annandale, and Springfield. We've been around for 50 years. So I've had the pleasure to be here for almost half of that time. And I really appreciate the opportunity to share with you some of the changes and some of the new things that we're seeing with youth who are either experiencing homelessness or who are at risk of it. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kathi to tell us what she does.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kathi Sheffel. I'm the Homeless Liaison for Fairfax County Public Schools, and I've been in my role for 23 years, so Judith has me beat by a couple of years there. Every school division in the country has a designated homeless liaison, and the role of that person is to make sure that homeless students are identified, that they're provided support, and as Judith stated, making sure that they can keep their education stable in spite of experiencing homelessness at that time. So the goal of our office is to make sure that we identify those students, make sure we have all the supports in place, and link them to community supports as well as in-school supports to be successful and finish school.
Great. Thank you both. Now that we have a better understanding of your roles, we've got some questions for you. So Kathi, I'll start with you. Locally, in Fairfax County, incomes are twice the national average. So the county consistently ranks in the top 5 wealthiest counties in the country. And yet we understand that Fairfax County Public Schools project that 2,300 students, and this is an estimate, will experience homelessness this year. There's a real discrepancy there. So can you help shed light on what youth homelessness in Fairfax County really looks like? Perhaps provide an overview of the situation, things like maybe how do you define homelessness in our public schools, or what forms of homelessness do you see our local students experiencing?
Sure. So we serve any student that is experiencing homelessness either with their family or a student on their own. So we have both in our office that we support. Families are on the move quite a bit since the pandemic. I think partially because just the cost of living, even though we are a wealthy county, it is expensive to live here. So the cost of housing, the lack of affordable housing, and the mobility of families to just stay housed has made our numbers creep up, particularly this year, where I think we're a little over 2,000 students now. So the 2,300 is pretty good of an estimate for the end of the school year. We identify students who are showing that they have a lack of a fixed, regular, and adequate housing. So that could be that they're in a shelter. It could be that they lost their housing. They're staying with somebody. They're on a couch. They're in a, on the floor of a living room. They could be in a motel for reasons of hardship. They could be living outside in their car, in a tent. So there's a variety of living situations that are covered under the definition that the Department of Education uses for defining homelessness. There is a difference in the definition between the education definition and the HUD definition. The HUD definition is a little more restrictive and doesn't always count those families that are doubled up. So you will see a difference in the numbers if you're looking at the data. And I know it can be a little confusing, but those two bodies, HUD and Department of Ed, have slightly different definitions.
Okay, thank you, Kathi. So Judith, we've gotten Kathi's perspective from inside the schools, but you also get to see the situation firsthand. Can you share a little bit about what you see in the community with regard to youth homelessness? What are these students juggling, and how does Second Story step in to play a role in helping?
I think there are a number of different categories isn't the right word, but a number of different situations for youth experiencing homelessness. We do have, I almost call it the emergency shelter for teenagers. We don't like to refer to it that way because young people don't want to go to a shelter. So the program is actually called Second Story for Teens in Crisis, and it works with 13 to 17-year-olds. Those young people may have left their homes for a variety of situations. We're grateful that they end up finding us rather than slipping into trafficking situations. But there's a whole social services mechanism that is in place to help them. We've got Kathi's office to make sure they get into school. We can get supports from the Fairfax County. We can try to access mental health supports if that's what's needed. There's a variety of areas that we can call on to help them. Those that age out, so to speak, who are 18, they become a different issue. Their parents no longer have to take them back, so to speak. So, we see young people for a number of reasons that end up still being in high school, but also experiencing homelessness without that family support. And it may be that the family has moved and they thought they've left the young person in a good situation, and that situation falls apart. It could be that there was friction in the family and they turn 18 and the family says, out. I don't care if you're still in high school, out. It can be someone moving in with their significant other when they turn 18 and it all falls apart. And so suddenly they're homeless, and for whatever reason, they can't go back to the living situation they had prior to launching on their own. Those young people are, if they're still in high school, are all eligible for Second Story for homeless youth. And we also try to work with those. We used to have some federal funding that would let us work with those who were in that age range, but who were not still in high school. Some of them have dropped out. Some of them may have gotten their GED or diploma, but now are floating. We're still striving to get funding to replace that, because that's a big gap in services right now in Fairfax. We also have a rapid rehousing program that works with those who are homeless by HUD's definition. And that program is running at full capacity. So there's a wide variety of programs that we have. We also have Second Story for young mothers, for young women who may be in high school, who may not be in high school, but who are experiencing homelessness and who are pregnant or parenting. So there's all sorts of reasons. We see a lot of commonalities among youth who are experiencing homelessness of some sort of trauma in their background. It may be domestic violence. It may have been child abuse and neglect. It may just be an uprooted living experience, lot of moves in their lives. It's very difficult to pinpoint just one reason why youth become homeless. There's a wide spectrum. We're just really glad that we're living in a community where there are, if in my opinion, not enough, but there are resources that can help them. Because I know Kathi and I have both worked on occasion with other communities in which there are zero resources. There are just none available. So, so we keep trying, and there's a lot of different ways that young people become homeless.
Our community has been amazing in seeing a need and trying to meet the needs. So we continue to have lots of partnerships with individuals and groups and nonprofits and anybody that's really interested in helping with youth homelessness. So we welcome those partnerships.
Yeah, thank you both. So we understand that both of you have collaborated together, and many of the clients that we serve at Second Story are referred to us from the schools. So Kathi, this isn't always easy work. Can you tell us more about how the schools identify students experiencing homelessness or those who are in crisis, and why that can be difficult? Because we know that often teachers and even fellow classmates may be unaware of a student's living situation. Young people are often guided by a strong desire to just fit in and not draw attention to themselves. So how does your office conduct the important work of identifying students who may need resources, and how do you offer help?
So, first of all, all of our staff really have had some training in identifying symptoms that may indicate homelessness, and they're aware of our office, and it's a very simple process to call, email, and we do the follow-up. So we make sure that if there's any indicators of homelessness, a student saying I had to leave home, they may say I'm staying with a friend right now, they may just be vague and say I'm not quite sure where I'm going to be staying, anything like that. They may tell a friend, they may tell a teacher, they may tell a counselor, they may tell a social worker. We will get either a phone call or a message just saying, I'm not sure, but this student might be having a housing issue. And then either I will call or one of my staff members will call and speak to the student or speak to the parents and find out how can we help. Sometimes the information wasn't quite accurate, but most of the time it is. And the family is not wanting to share this very personal trauma with a lot of people. But, once we talk to them and explain that homeless students have certain rights that are really important to their education. For example, they can stay in the school that they were in, regardless of where they have to go for temporary housing. And so there's not a disruption in their education. We will make sure they have transportation to get to that school. We'll make sure they have school supplies. We'll make sure they have tutoring if they need it. Help with, graduation requirements, all the things that they may need to keep the school piece of their lives stable, even though the housing piece of their lives is not stable at that moment. So we rely on our staff members and our community partners. Sometimes we get calls from outside of the school system saying, my child has a friend and I think their friend needs some help from your office. So it might be that a student told their parent, one of my friends is being kicked out of their house, or one of my friends can't go home, or can my friend stay with us? And then they'll call us and we'll try to help them navigate, what they can do, where they can get additional supports and resources if they have someone staying with them that's not their own child.
Thank you. Okay, so it's clear that we've got this partnership between, Fairfax County Public Schools identifying those who need resources and then connecting them with organizations like Second Story or other options for providing that support. And I understand that the two of you have worked very closely over the years, and that your coordination has led to the formation of some of Second Story's programs. So Judith, I was hoping you could share some more about how that coordination has led to the creation of some of our programs so that we could meet a need that Kathi had identified in the community.
Yeah, it's been so long now, it's kind of hard to remember exactly when and where it started. But I would say it was just prior to the 2008 recession. I mean, Second Story and the schools have been working together probably for 50 years, certainly for the 27 years that I've been at Second Story, the schools have been a huge partner with us, and hopefully we've been a good resource for them. One of the things I wanted to tag on to what Kathi said also is that while the schools are focusing on the education pieces for that young person who's experiencing homelessness, we're also trying to fill in not just with giving them a place to stay, but I know partnering with the school social workers and accessing all of the other things that young people need. Often it's, mental health, help with anxiety. No kidding. Gosh, you're in high school and you're homeless. You're not anxious. There's, it's pretty common, and the depression and the things like that affect young people who are in this situation. That part I don't think has changed over the years. Kids who are experiencing homelessness have been through, generally speaking, have been through a lot in their lives. And so when communities experience tension, that flows on to families, that flows on to the young people. And when Kathi and I really hooked up for the first time was just prior to the 2008 recession. And Kathi had formed a task force to try to address the fact that their office was seeing young people. I don't know why I'm telling this, Kathi, you should.
You're a good storyteller. I'll fill in.
Okay. So her office she had pulled together a group of people, everyone from Child Protective Services to juvenile justice, and basically, I think anyone she could think of, to say, what are we going to do about these young people who are still in high school? They don't have the support of a parent or guardian, and they don't have anywhere to live. And one of the young women that she highlighted at the time was a girl who was sleeping in her church basement and did not want to report her parents because she loved her parents, but her parents had such mental health issues that she wasn't able to live with them. And she wasn't a case for Child Protective Services because they looked at it and said, well, she's safe. She's not in danger. But, sleeping in a church basement and trying to cook on a hot plate and do your homework and all of that isn't the best situation. And so we were all as a group trying to figure out how to address this. What do we do? How do we keep these kids in school? And when the recession hit and all of the Recovery Act money became available, people were talking about how do we use this to help homelessness in our county. And at that time, we were working under the 10-year plan to prevent and end homelessness. And it made little, if no reference to youth experiencing homelessness. That just wasn't at the top of anybody's mind at the time. And so, I even went to meetings where people would tell me, oh, we can't have homeless youth. That's illegal. So
call somebody, just call somebody. Yeah.
Call somebody, do something. That's not, so it was, Kathi and I started going to all the meetings where they were discussing where this money was going to be spent. And I think they got tired of hearing from us because, alternately we'd pop up and go, but what about these young people? What about these young people? And the organization called the CAB, and I can't 100% even remember what that stands for, although I know they're still going strong today, decided that they would give us some of the that American Recovery and Reinvestment Act money, the ARA money, to work with youth homelessness. And so we launched the Homeless Youth Initiative. And one of the first young people we pulled into the program was a young man whose story actually made the front of the local section of the Washington Post. He had been living in a very upscale neighborhood, upper middle class. When the recession hit, both he and both of his parents lost their jobs. And the marriage fell apart. They left, and they left this 18-year-old in this house. And he was trying, as was referenced earlier, he's trying to make everybody feel like, yeah, everything's fine. I'm living in a good house. I'm going to school. I'm wearing my good tennies. It's like everything's fine. But he's living there and he doesn't know where he's going to eat. He has no utilities. They've been shut off. And Kathy's office finally identified that he was, basically needing somewhere to live. He's living in a foreclosed house, and so we found a host home for him to stay at, where we provided a rent subsidy, and he was able to complete his high school and move on to college. But that's just sort of one of the stories that we had, and we looked at it. We had 18 months of funding, and at the end of that time, we went to the county because we were all out of funding. It's like it's done, and showed them the outcomes that instead of having young people who were dropping out living in adult homeless shelters, on track to just repeat, we had kids who were graduating from high school and who were going on to college or going on to employment or employment in college, but they were having so much better outcomes than before the program launched, that the county actually agreed to fund the program. And it's morphed over the years, but it still goes on today. And that was the seed of it. And I don't know, Kathi, what do you want to add?
Well, just that the bringing the awareness to the community, I think, has stayed with us. And at least, from my program's perspective, we've been able to grow our program through these years also. It used to be just me, and now I have a wonderful team of social workers and a transportation specialist and someone working on attendance and someone that focuses just on helping kids who are seniors that want to go on to college and vocational training. So we've been able to expand our program and our work and really target our students with the supports that they need individually, because they really are not a group. The only thing they share in common is that they've experienced the trauma of homelessness, but their needs are all individual. And we're able to work with our community and within our school system to figure out what does that student need. What can we do to shore up their situations so that they can complete their education and go on to do what they want to do next? So I think the awareness within our community has really grown. Even as funding has come and gone through the years, the awareness has stayed with us.
I would agree with that. The sea change from having people tell us that youth can't be homeless to the recognition that when you turn 18, you shouldn't have to be able to deal with everything that life has to throw you on your own, especially if you haven't even, gotten your high school diploma yet. The recognition that, 18 is not the magic age, that we all become adults. And that in particular, adolescent brain development continues through the age of 24. So just in the 20 years, it's just been a huge sea change in how we're looking at the issue of youth homelessness, and the recognition that youth experiencing homelessness are different than adults who are experiencing homelessness. They have different needs, and they have different developmental abilities. They are not little mini adults. They need different things. And I think the other thing that has been so amazing over the years is that the partnership between our organization and the schools has deepened and increased. That I don't think that they're currently doing it because we're both experiencing staffing shortages, but Kathy's office used to staff the meetings that we had every week around where is each individual youth, how are they doing, what do they need, how are they doing in school. I know that they're still connecting, when needed, but it's been a very, very close collaboration.
I think that that's still going. It's just not as regular as it was initially. But I think our ongoing work is to keep talking about these students and understanding that their 18th birthday does not equate to, great, you can be on your own in Fairfax County, you should be able to be self-supporting and make it happen. That's just not realistic. And anybody that's worked with a 17, 18-year-old knows that they still need supports of different kinds. And so we're hoping that our collaboration is going to help those students to be able to launch into their futures with those supports and not have a big disruption just because of housing.
Great. Great. Thank you both for that sort of historical perspective on your collaboration. I think it's really interesting. And I was hoping to touch upon another aspect of this sort of and how it's changed over time. And that is the why. And by why, we mean, why are these students in these situations of crisis and experiencing homelessness? And we've touched upon that a bit in general throughout the conversation, but what have you both seen, and Kathi, I'll start with you, about how the why has changed or where it currently is right now for the students that you're working with?
Okay, well, I can give you some general whys. There's so many different whys, but in addition to the lack of affordable housing, families are having hard times right now, and sometimes there are fractures in the family that separate students from their parents. It could be interpersonal conflict, it could be physical health, mental health, economics, any number of reasons. And our goal in our office is, in spite of those things, we want kids to have continuity in school. So we do work with others to try to remedy anything that can be fixed. If it's a family dynamics issue, we can get supports to the family. If there's a communication problem within the family, we can help with that. We work with our school counselors, our school social workers, outside providers to help the family. But sometimes it just doesn't seem that it's going to be safe for the student to go back home. And in those cases, we work hard with our community partners in the second story to find alternatives so that wherever they are staying is as safe as it can possibly be. So safe couch surfing, safe temporary housing, safe shelter if they need it. But we do try to keep our students out of the adult shelters if we can, because it's just not an appropriate placement for a high school student. It can be done, and our county does a great job trying to support any students that are in the shelters for adults, but as Judith mentioned, developmentally, it's not an appropriate place. It's so different from what their peers are experiencing. It really creates a bigger divide from trying to just be a normal high school student.
Yeah, thank you. Judith, do you have anything you'd like to add to that about what you're seeing with regard to sort of the why and the issues that today's youth are facing, and how it might be contributing differently, across over the years to where we sit today?
So I think that the rock hard basic reasons why youth become homeless are probably the same through the years. We've touched on it before. When there's a community crisis, be it the recession of 2008 or the pandemic that we have been experiencing, that creates a lot of pressure on families. And so, I'm sure, even the quote unquote most well-adjusted and middle-class families experience that pressure, and it shows up in different ways. If you're living in a family that's got some other additional pressures, be it income, mental health, domestic violence, any of those things, that additional pressure is too much, and it can just fracture the family. And there's an expression in the field that I work in, that youth vote with their feet. They feel they're safer leaving their home situation for whatever is out there than they are staying where they are. And so I think that is the constant. Whether it's, go back however many recessions you want to go back to, or where we are today. And those outside pressures are never going to completely change. We go through some periods of calm, but inevitably something's going to happen again. So that part doesn't change. Sometimes the factors that are influencing what happens, do change. In 2008, it was really the economy. We're seeing the isolation of the pandemic has had the effect. The opioid crisis is now exerting itself. for a very long time, we were not seeing it so much with the youth in our programs as with the parents of the youth in our programs and how that was impacting the youth. That has changed in the last couple of years, and we're seeing it more and more among youth as well. That's the current crisis. Cyberbullying, it used to be bullying in person. So there are nuances that change throughout the years and different things that you have to address. But I think that underlying reason, families fracturing from stress, is probably the biggest thing that causes young people to not have a secure housing situation.
Okay. Thank you both. I also just want to bring it back to the point we talked about at the beginning, how Fairfax County is one of the wealthiest in the country. Thankfully, it's also a very caring and generous community, and we know that there are many community members who care and who are looking for ways to help. I was hoping you could both share avenues that you're aware of that are open to those who want to help, and share with us some tips on how the community could get involved in this important work.
We get calls frequently from people asking how they can help, and there are so many ways to help. I mean, our first go-to is support an organization like Second Story, go through our county. There's so many ways to volunteer for so many organizations that support homeless families and homeless youth. Our kids are always in need of basic needs assistance, and that's something our office does. It's something Judith's program does. It's something our county is doing quite a bit. We're doing a lot of help with basic needs: food, clothing, shoes, medical care, dental care, all of that. So there's really no end to the ways to volunteer, but our community has been extremely responsive to these needs of our kids. And I think we've really benefited from community supports in many, many, many ways to get basic needs to kids so that they can continue with their job of growing up, going to school, working, and figuring out what they're going to do after they graduate.
I guess I would just echo what Kathi said. We can always use volunteers. We can always use donations. There are any number of ways listed on our website that you can support young people. We have opportunities. We have a drop-in teen center in Colmore that, we love having people come down who can help out with math homework, or with English as a second language, or just being there to talk to young people about, what they're experiencing in school. We have tutoring opportunities in our homeless youth initiatives. So they're all listed on our website. They change. Sometimes we're fine with tutors and we need, drivers. It's always different, but there's all kinds of volunteer opportunities. And I'm Meredith, I'm sure you'll post the website. And I think the other thing that people can do is just in your own life, pay attention to the young people around you. And if you see a young person who you think may be having an issue at home, or you notice that they're wearing the same clothes every day, and ask, do you need help? There are any number of places that they can be referred to, but we can't help anyone that we don't know that they need it. So it can hide in the most amazing places. And as Kathi said, if you have a child that's saying, hey, could so-and-so stay for dinner, and it starts to become more than just hey, they like your cooking, maybe find out why.
And I just want to add too that, schools are the anchor for families and for students. And it is very easy for a student to access help at school. They can tell any trusted adult at school that they need help with housing or basic needs, and it will get to our office and we will be able to follow up. So I just want to emphasize that schools are prepared to help families and help students. Everyone is aware that families may be struggling, especially post-pandemic, and we're here to help.
Thank you. Okay, well, it looks like we've got just a few more minutes, and I wondered if either of you, if there's anything we didn't cover today that you'd like to share with our interested community members today.
The hard part is, I guess for me, is knowing when it's time to stop. It's because I've been doing this for so long, I could go on forever, talking about all the different things that I've seen and the kids that we've worked with. I guess two things that I can think of that maybe we didn't emphasize enough. And one of them is that I know that Kathi, as well as all of us at Second Story, really do try hard, if we can, to reunite youth with their families. And it is the primary thing that we try to do. That isn't always possible. And so, our overarching goal is making sure that the youth is safe and that they have the chance. And then that would be the other thing I think we didn't touch on quite enough, and that is the actual amazingness of the young people that we work with. They can be a pain in the neck. They're not always easy, but what they overcome and what they go on to do is really inspiring.
We've had some wonderful outcomes with students going to college, graduating from college, coming back to volunteer to help with students who are currently homeless, or speaking on behalf of other youth who experienced homelessness in high school. And I feel like we are really able to provide that link between homelessness as a child and success as an adult through the collaboration of both education programs and our partners.
Yeah. Thank you both. This has been a really wonderful conversation. One other thing to add too is when Judith and Kathi both brought up, if you do identify a young person who you think might need assistance, on our website we have a hotline, and it's 1-800-SAY-TEEN. We could put that in the chat, or you can text teen help, one word, to 855-11, and that's on our website. We can post it in the chat as well. So at this point, I just want to thank Judith and Kathi, not only for being here with us today to help educate us, but for your service to young people over the past 27 and 23 years, respectively. That's really quite amazing, so thank you. And I also want to thank our attendees for joining us today and for caring enough about the young people in our community who face significant challenges every day. So thank you for joining us. Before signing off, I just want to hand it over to my colleague, Alex, to talk about some follow-up we'll do and opportunities that you can have for follow-up questions.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Meredith. My name is Alex. I'm the Community Outreach Liaison here at Second Story. First and foremost, I just wanted to say thank you to Judith and Kathi for such an amazing conversation. You ladies are incredible. I also just wanted to thank you all for coming to be part of this informative conversation. We're very grateful for your support. But again, before you log off, if you enjoyed what you heard today, and are curious to learn more about Second Story's mission, our programs, and just, again, some ways to get involved to help these students who are experiencing homelessness here in Fairfax County, I would love to invite you all to attend one of our open door information sessions. They're virtual. We have them on the third Tuesday of every month. They alternate between 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. They're very casual, and it's just a great way to learn about Second Story in about 30 to 45 minutes. So very similar to this, but they're hosted by me, and you get some visuals with videos and a presentation, and then again, another follow-up to just answer any questions. So you can sign up on our website, but I will be following up with a link to register in just this event's overall follow-up email. But other than that, also we do have, again, our social media and newsletter that I highly suggest that you follow and sign up for. It's just an easy way to keep track of events and things happening at Second Story. So with that, though, I know we've been, holding you here for a little bit. So I hope you all can enjoy today's beautiful weather, and I will be reaching out soon with a follow-up and, hopefully to answer any questions that you have. But thank you so much, and we appreciate you.